Today's News Talk Radio.
Come on, let the man talk.
We never censor our hosts.
Good. Now, talk.
Uncensored news.
Today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
Joining us is Terry Wolf of wolfpox.com, author seen by millions on TikTok before he was deplatformed, coming to us from Canada. I'm down here in Mexico. How's it going, Terry?
Going great. I like to be back here. I just finished writing some posts for my Winter Christian Substack that I'm proud of. It's part of a whole series I'm doing on serving God's kingdom and what that means in real terms for people like you and me and people who are listening who just want to contribute in some way to make a difference. One of them is about kind of getting ready for the new age, getting ready for the re-enchantment that we've been talking about a lot of times. There's an interesting interview with Jonathan Pageau, who's an Orthodox mystic who talks about fairies and aliens and the occult and divination and all these things in this big interview. It's sort of I think it's seeping into sort of the more mainstream. I shouldn't even say it's mainstream because it's alternative, I guess, but the alternative, as we'll talk about that later with David Icke, I think, and this idea of what is the mainstream anymore and what is the alternative. But getting ready for that in this sort of age of anything goes, post-truth craziness. And then another one most recently was about identifying weaknesses in ourselves and how, a lot of people today, they care about the truth and they want to have this sort of info war, this fight for the truth, but they don't actually discipline themselves like a soldier would. They don't actually think about themselves as being somebody who needs to stay focused and be mission oriented and have sort of this shield to protect themselves against all the attacks that come against us. They just sort of hope to hide and then contribute a little something and then run away. And so I wanted to try to help people walk through what it takes to try to be sort of a soldier in the fight for truth.
Yeah, you talk about how Christians today and are lazy first and foremost, and I'm guilty of that. And it's something to reflect on. It reminds me of a quote I came across from Tim Challies this week, where he cites DeWitt Talmash. I have no idea who that is. Who says, "quote I lay this down as a rule without any exception that those people who have the most faults themselves are most merciless in their watching of others." But you mentioned David Icke and the mammies is what he's using now. The info war, the info civil war, I guess we can call it now. David Icke versus Alex Jones versus Elon Musk versus Andrew Tate. David Knight has jumped into the fray. He's a former employee of Alex Jones. And it's interesting. David Icke is now taking the Donnie Darkened, running sort of partially with the Donnie Darkened theory. I had him on a while back, although I consider David Icke to be part of the same Great Awakening false light. NWO, I watched the chat between Musk. I listened to the Alex Jones, Musk, Andrew Tate interview, but basically Icke is complaining and saying that the alternative media has now become mainstream alternative media, MAM or mammies, as he says, the new mainstream alternative media. And I think he's true. He's throwing in Carlson, Rogan, Jordan Peterson, Russell Brand. And we've been talking about this for a while, Terry, and I don't know, David Icke, if he's just bitter or what. I include him in as part of this deception. And there were people in the comment section on David Knight's Twitter post who said others from InfoWars were outing themselves as Freemasons, and I just searched and I found Charles, what's his name? I think Gayser, one of the InfoWars hosts, himself in a on one segment say he's a 32nd degree Freemason. And I think I saw him at the Liberty Awards that I attended in August. I passed right by him as he was sitting down. But it's just a lot of shady stuff going on. People pointing out how Andrew Tate and Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones's parents are all like CIA, military intelligence. What do you make of this info civil war?
Right. I mean, what a big tangle of weirdness, because you have the cognitive dissonance of David Icke saying, that they're controlled opposition and that they're fake, when he's the one talking about reptilians and the kinds of products and things he advertises on the show. If you ever listen to it, I suggest people do, just so you can see it for yourself. But he is a mystic. He's fully into New Age strangeness. He's deeply invested in these different narratives that are New Agey, UFO obsessed, and breaking the speed of light with your consciousness so you can manifest the different future. And he's not grounded in sort of real world solutions to anything. He wants you to go into this cult-like mentality where you're following these spiritual gurus and leaders, and he's one of them. And so while Alex Jones is back on X, and there's this normal culture war going on around free speech, these other guys are trying to pull in this extremist, radical post-truth re-enchantment direction that is, this all just reminds me so much of what I wrote about in Fire in the Rabbit Hole, my book, which is all about that. It's about this counterculture that is actually controlled. And David Icke is squarely in the middle of that, along with Stephen Greer and a lot of these other guys. And for those who don't know, David Knight, a fundamentalist Christian libertarian who got fired from InfoWars for no reason, out of nowhere, basically because he criticized Trump. And then David Icke got brought in, not necessarily as a replacement, but shortly thereafter. So that's some context for that Twitter spat.
Yeah, and Knight was also talking about Mike Adams and Natural News on his most recent episode. But David Icke, it's funny, some of the assessment that he has is true. David Icke writes, Elon, oh, thank you, sir. And I listened to it. Alex Jones was calling him sir, like he was talking to Elon Musk in that way, like Sir Musk. And he makes a good point, David Icke, that how could someone like Elon Musk have so much wealth and be on top of SpaceX and Neuralink and Tesla if he wasn't part of the system? They wouldn't give him the government contracts for SpaceX and Tesla and all this stuff. There's a lot of crony capitalism going on with the subsidies he gets, the deals with the Tesla stuff. There's no way Elon could be anti-system at all, or this empire of his would collapse. So Elon is bona fide de facto. He's what some have called technocracy's general. Terry, it's time for our headlines. We'll be right back.
Now,
I've got news for you. Give me the news.
give it to me.
Give me the news.
TNT Radio News.
For TNT Radio News, this is James O'Neill. The U.S. Department of Justice recently announced the arrest of Tyler Anderson, a 30-year-old resident of Dover, New Hampshire, for issuing threats against Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy and others planning to attend a campaign event in the state. Special Counsel Jack Smith has indicated plans to possibly introduce data analysts as expert witnesses in an upcoming trial in Washington, D.C. related to the federal election case involving former President Donald Trump.
Why not give TNT Radio a follow? We're on all major social platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Gab, and Getter. Help us get the word out as we cover the biggest topics of our time right here on today's News Talk. TNT Radio. TNT Radio.
All right, we're with Terry Wolf, wolfpox.com. And if you got any other thought on the info civil war, and I was pleasantly surprised. I shared that. I actually made a comment on Donnie Darkin's thread, and someone who I follow and greatly respect, I think he's he's from Dominican Republic, I think, a geopolitics expert living in Dubai, Miguel Llenas, and he follows my stuff, and he agrees too. I was shocked to discover that this geopolitics expert living in the Mideast believes the same as we do, Terry. But any final thought before moving on to this clip you found about flat Earth, which I think is also linked to all of this esoteric stuff going on?
Well, yeah, two thoughts. One is, as far as Elon Musk goes, we've been talking about his grandfather, who was a Canadian Technocracy Incorporated political party leader, wanted to become the Prime Minister of Canada in a party called Technocracy Incorporated, which is government controlled by corporate scientists, corporate experts, the private-public partnership that we're going to be discussing even more later. So, I mean, we've been hitting Elon Musk on all fronts for a long time. So there's the fact that David Icke is pointing that out is good, but it's always the solution where you have to look and see what is that person offering as the alternative, and that's where David Icke goes completely off the rails, and I can't endorse him at all. And I would say that that David Icke's angle here, it does sound like he's just sitting on the sideline and sort of complaining that he doesn't get to be part of the spotlight there. And he specifically mentioned in his thing that these people, what he calls mammies, they don't allow people to go fully down the rabbit hole. He used those words, down the rabbit hole, which having written Fire in the Rabbit Hole, which is all about warning people about these crazy illegitimate rabbit holes that people go down seeking the truth. I got a big kick out of that, because he's just sort of generically endorsing rabbit holes in general with no disclaimers, and I find that to be weird.
Yeah, and we got this flat Earth clip that you shared, and there's still people pestering me about someone. I shared the clip, and someone in my Geopolitics and Empire Telegram channel, people can join. I think we got 13,000 plus subscribers there. I curate my own news feed there, and I just I said I'm not looking into. Someone said I suggest you actually researching the topic yourselves as honestly as possible, and I said, yeah, no, I'm not doing flat Earth. And then the person responds, I actually really like your content on this channel, and your ignorance isn't going to stop me continuing asking the right questions on the path to truth. So for me, that sounds a lot like this esoteric, Gnostic thing that's going on, and I find it offensive. I never call anyone, I'm a Christian. If I'm trying to preach the gospel to someone, I never call anyone ignorant. I find that as it's a synonym of like calling someone stupid or an idiot. I find that offensive. But before we play the flat Earth clip, what's going on here?
I believe this was an atheist going around trying to interview people about flat Earth, and I think this is people are trying to align Christianity with flat Earthism, and so. This is one of those things where I wanted to let people know, we can come out in the open and say, this has nothing to do with Christianity. This is some sort of modern psyop, and the forced association with this is something I want to break. And I have an entire chapter in my book, Fire in the Rabbit Hole, on the flat Earth. I'm not afraid at all of that debate. It's just mostly a waste of time once you debunk it so quickly. You can move on. You don't have to keep sitting there and indulging the madness. But listen to what this guy says. You can see for yourself. There's a real person on the streets.
Now let's play the clip.
If the Earth is flat, where is the sun? It's 93 million miles away?
The sun at any given time, and when you say the sun, there is no the sun. Everybody has their own sun.
What do you mean?
Literally.
What do you mean literally?
Literally, everybody has their own sun. There's a different sun for everybody.
What do you mean a different sun? I don't understand that. Like, you're saying that there's a different sun here in Las Vegas than there is in New York?
You're not looking at the same sun there, correct.
So how many suns are there?
As many people who are viewing it.
So every individual person has their own sun?
That's correct.
What?
That is correct. The sun's no more than 50 miles away at any given time.
50? Wait. But wait a second. But airplanes go up in the sky.
That's right. And it's like a rainbow.
How come the sun doesn't get bigger when you're in an airplane?
The closer you move to it, the farther it moves from you. It's like a rainbow. And the sun isn't a thing.
This is going to break me, man. This is going to break me.
The sun is literally not a thing.
Wait a second.
No, it's not like a burning ball of gas or any of that bullshit.
What is it?
Yeah, it's
what is the sun then?
It's cold.
The sun is cold.
The sun is cold.
I was laughing the first time. I'm still laughing rewatching this video, and this is why with some of these subjects, I feel like my brain is broken. I'm not interested in dealing with flat Earth or but any further thoughts on this?
I just like to point this out for people because there are these warning signs. We looked the other week at the mushroom church where people are sitting in pews and they've got diodes hooked into literal fungus mushrooms, and they're listening to the frequencies of mushrooms. Here we have a guy saying that there's no such thing as the sun, and that it's all an illusion that's created somehow individually. This is society tearing itself apart and getting rid of the objective world, and you can't have a conversation with this. Like you can't. So if this is where society is moving and it's breaking down on this level, I just think that's a good warning sign to look at. And of course, flat earthers will try to distance themselves from this. And of course, there's a million different interpretations of flat earth. That's one of the problems with it. There is no model. There is no coherent discussion around it. It's just hype and hysteria and paranoia it's just a rabbit hole that goes nowhere. And so, I don't know. I just think these are the kinds of things that pop out to me, and I think people just have to face it and face that this is, at least in America, where the level of conversation can very quickly turn.
I mean, it's just logical. It's a logical end to late stage planet Earth, the end times, just complete inversion collapse of everything. People now think boys can be girls. We've got, I just mentioned, there's a Baphomet statue in Iowa, in the local government building. The Earth is flat. It's just everything is just opposite. Everything is unraveling, but there's this other story that is also very important. I think, I'm noticing in the chat there are people who disagree with us. Someone said, okay, let's speak with David Weiss or Eric Dubai. They may have been on the network before. We can check the archives. I'm not sure, but sorry, I just, this is my view. There are other maybe presenters who view things differently, but hey, I'm not into this. But what was I going to mention? This other story.
Sorry, I also do have to say on David Weiss specifically, I talk about him a lot in my book. So if you want, I've listened to many David Weiss interviews. I point out why he's connected to all sorts of very strange things and paganism and things like that in my book. So I'm not afraid of David Weiss. He's not as intelligent as you think he is. He's just a fast talker. That's my opinion.
And by dude, I think I hope they're referring to the dude in the video who was a bit wacky, and not referring to Mr. Terry Wolf. But there's this other story on the Google notifications. I think Senator Ron Wyden, thanks to him, we learned about this, and I think this must just be the tip of the iceberg, because if we're discovering this, there must be a whole bunch of stuff that we don't know about. But because the clip is a little bit lengthy, and then we're gonna hit our break. If you want to just tell us about it, we'll play the clip, go to our break, and then come back to continue talking about it.
Yeah, this is kind of a viral video. The creator has had a lot of videos like this that he tries to alert people to sort of government corruption and spying and stuff. So from what I understand, this is about a high-level investigation into somebody tipped off a senator or whatever into push notifications being used as a way to spy on citizens because the push notifications, it turns out, go to a cloud service. Then other people can get that data from that cloud service, and so they can kind of bypass rules of spying on citizens.
All right, let's play the clip.
It's because I think it should be a bigger story, and I don't think it's going to get covered.
Okay.
All right, so can I explain it to you?
Yeah.
And then you can just tell me if I sound crazy.
Okay.
Because I'm going to sound crazy.
Yeah. Okay.
99% of the phones in the world are being tracked by every single government through push notifications. And the United States government has a gag order on the two largest phone companies through their operating systems to make sure that no one knows about it. And it was just confirmed by a letter via the chairman of the Committee on Finance in the Senate.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So you're saying that all the governments?
So this is how he words it. All right. Okay. Senator Ron Wyden, in a letter to the Attorney General, he states that last year he got a tip, his office got a tip, that foreign governments were reaching out to Google and Apple. Now that's important because Android phones make up 70% of every operating system in the world.
All right.
On every phone.
Okay.
The other 29% is Apple.
Yeah.
Both of those companies were being reached out to by foreign governments who were requesting push notification data.
Push notification data?
So you know when somebody sends you a text?
Yeah.
Okay, and you get that little thing that pops up at the top of the screen?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you like this thing. Or like Amazon sends you a little bing. It's like, oh, just so you know, Magneto helmets are 30% off. And then you click the button and buy.
I cannot believe you bought that Magneto helmet.
Okay, ignore this. The governments are tracking us, okay?
All right.
I will put it on so they don't hear my thoughts.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you get that, that's a push notification.
Yeah.
Okay? But that doesn't come directly from your app. That, through these services, goes from the app to a cloud server.
Okay.
And then it goes to your phone.
All right.
So these governments are subpoena and requesting the information from the cloud server. Not from your phone, not from the app, but from Google and from Apple. And so these governments, we don't know what governments, it just says in the letter, foreign countries are reaching out and collecting this data. Now, the assumption being ones that the United States has security partnerships with throughout the world.
Maybe.
But also maybe the United States government as well. Because when his office reached out and were like, we want more information about this, both Google and Apple stated to the senator, who is the chairman of the Committee on Finance, he has the clearance. We can't tell you because we're under a gag order by the United States government. So this senator is asking the Attorney General, hey, lift the gag order and let people know if they're being surveilled through the push notifications. Because those push notifications could have things like in a text, who the text came from, maybe like a little bit of the preview of the body of the text, maybe other metadata in there, like where the text was being sent from or other things, like when you drop a pin to tell someone your location, and it tells you in the push notification, tons of information could be up there.
Yeah.
And like, this just came out, but I'm already seeing it like not getting any traction anywhere.
Why not?
Well, because Apple and Google pay a lot in advertising, and they also run the algorithms that track of how people find out information.
Okay, yeah, so they're not going to want this to get out.
Yeah, and so they're just going to be like, maybe it'll just go away.
So should we get tinfoil and make tinfoil hats?
No, I bought a Magneto helmet.
I know you bought a Magneto
helmet. That way they can't read my push notifications.
I don't think it's going to work.
I think I couldn't hurt.
Give me a minute with TNT Radio's Steve TNT.
It's our final segment with Terry Wolf of Fox.com. We just played that clip about how the government now can read our notifications on smartphones. And, you know, that sort of breaks end-to-end encryption. When you think about WhatsApp, and then your WhatsApp text from your friend appears as a push notification, that means then the government can read that text. So what's the point of end-to-end encryption on WhatsApp or any other messenger? I think this is a big deal, and as you said, needs to get more traction. But I mean, if they can do this, I mean, I don't even want to start to wonder the other ways that they're getting our information. What do you make of all of this, Terry?
Yeah, the major thing here is that the senator couldn't even get access to the information because there was a gag order on those companies. So the government is creating, the attorney general or whoever is creating silence around the issue at a legal level, at a very high level. They're not allowed to reveal anything, even to senators. So somebody at a very high level is blocking this, which suggests American government collusion in the whole thing. And this must be a very active way that people are spying, countries are spying. And obviously, I would suggest everybody who has a phone, you can control your notifications to give you a prompt, but not give you the body of the text. Maybe that would help. I mean, maybe we can do a little bit, but you're probably right. It's probably a lot deeper than this.
Yeah, and I long ago shut off all notifications on my phone for another reason, which was I don't want to be constantly getting a ding and then the phone forcing me to look at it. I don't even like using my phone. I just throw it in the corner of the room, shut it off, put it on airplane mode, and it's only when I want to use it, I go to do what I want to do, and not being controlled by the device. That's why I shut off all notifications, and I've got a de-Googled phone now, so I think I'm pretty safe, which means they can't surveil it because the primary way on phones that they surveil is through the Google operating system. But if you remove that, like you know, on de-Googled phones, then they really can't surveil you. You do away with like 99% of the surveillance. You know, Rob Braxman has talked about that among others. But what else is going on, Terry?
I think there's a huge story here. I'm going to have to write about it more. I think I'm going to probably do a Substack on it. This is something called the Council for Inclusive Capitalism. It is headed by a Rothschild, Lady Lynn de Rothschild, in conjunction, in partnership with the Vatican. So you have, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you now have a Rothschild teaming up with the Vatican to end all of the WEF people, including Mark Carney, who that should raise all sorts of red flags for those who have done their research on Mark Carney, who was the former governor of the Bank of England. He was the governor of the Bank of Canada. He is a very powerful person. This is one of the most alarming, partnerships we've seen. They have an official YouTube channel and official YouTube videos. They show these people inside the Vatican with the Pope talking about how they need to reset capitalism. And Lynn de Rothschild was on CNBC in an interview talking about how AI is going to be the big cause of why they need to reset capitalism. And I found this story through Alt Market. The amazing Brandon Smith, who I'm a huge fan of. He's done so many amazing things over the years. Talking about, I'll read from him. He says, AI, much like climate change, is quickly becoming yet another fabricated excuse for the global centralization. The CIC, the Center for Inclusive Capitalism, along with institutions like the WEF and the UN, have been asserting for the past few years that someone needs to step in and moderate AI so no single government abuses its apparently unlimited power. In other words, problem, reaction, solution. The globalists create a problem out of thin air, AI, then suggest it is a much greater boon or threat to humanity than it actually is. Then they offer their services as a fair and benevolent arbiters of the technology and its effects. Rothschild suggests it herself in the interview when she claims that capitalists will have to adjust their priorities over to social causes in the wake of AI. So it's ESG in another form. And then the last thing I would just quote from here, he says at the end, it is a perfect shadow government, a technocratic Wizard of Oz using the smoke and mirrors of AI of an AI puppet to rule the planet, removing all accountability and displacing all rebellion. For how can the populace argue or revolt against a faceless algorithm floating in the digital ether?
It's funny you read that quote because I pulled up the article an hour ago. I hadn't read it, and I just scanned it quickly. Like in a few seconds, I'm scanning, not reading, going through the paragraphs, and I'm always looking for the takeaway. And I had highlighted exactly what you read. AI, much like climate change, is becoming another fabricated excuse. It's just funny how we're in the same frequency here. Like that's the money shot right there. And yeah, Brandon is great. I messaged with him a while back trying to get him to come on. He was busy, but we follow each other. I'll see if I can get him on the program. And you mentioned Mark Carney. He is a key cog in the machine. Ian Davis, the UK blogger, he was recently on with Rick Moon to talk about the article he wrote for me on the Al-Aqsa false flag. Ian Davis wrote a lengthy piece for me as well over at geopoliticsandempire.com on Mark Carney. and how he's held a lot of these very elite positions at the Bank of Canada. I think they're talking about having him become Prime Minister of Canada. I think it was at the Bank of England also. Or I don't know where else this guy's been, but he's a key cog in the globalist machine, and it's just more of the same. Whether it's AI, and when I mean that, I don't these days I don't really have to sit down and read the entire article like this anymore. We all know the plan. It's like, okay, Vatican, blah, blah, Rothschild, the world government, AI, yada, yada. Okay, we get it. We understand the plan here.
If you do enough, see, this is the nice thing when you do get caught up to speed is you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. You can just sort of incorporate what's new into there. And that's why people need to do their research on this. But if you don't know about the public-private partnership sort of agenda that keeps happening, this is like the poster child for it. They're literally talking about resetting capitalism, which basically means destroying the labor market, destroying the free market, and just having a controlled economy where technocrats, scientists, whatever experts they claim, apparently in conjunction with the Vatican. That, to me, is the very strange thing here, is that the Vatican is at the heart of it. It's being hosted inside the Vatican, I guess, to give it a veneer of tradition and some sort of like religious inclusiveness or something like that. But I'm going to have to dig into where the Vatican fits into this, because I know that COP28 and they're trying to push the religious angle of this. The New World Order needs to have a new religion. I'm trying to be one of the most vocal people about that we need to be looking at all sides of this movement to take over the world and destroy the traditional sort of Christian free market, decent society into this sort of totalitarian top-down control where your rights don't matter. But it's okay because now we have universal basic income or whatever it is they're pushing. And I would just also add the AI bogeyman is something that Klaus Schwab and Yuval Harari are pushing like crazy too. Yuval Harari's books are about how AI is going to transform humanity forever. So this feels like an echo of what I already read when I read Yuval Harari's book on AI taking over. And I think Brandon Smith's takeaway here is exactly the same as what I figured when I read Yuval Harari's book. They're going to use AI to scare people into giving up their rights and giving up on capitalism.
We're just about out of time, and I thought I'd just read this quote real quick from Mark Mallet, renowned Catholic. I'm not a Catholic, but I really respect him. He says, "There's arguably no other generation that's a better candidate for Daniel's vision than ours. All that remains is the switch to a digital currency, and the levers of power will fall into the hands of a few men. It's clear this global beast is able to suppress, demand submission, and crush freedom to a degree unforeseen. You might ask, what is the point of defending the truth if it won't change the trajectory of this global beast? True, it may not stop the rise of this beast that humanity has brought upon itself, but it may save a single soul from damnation. Moreover, our courageous defense of truth is not always about whether we succeed, but how we fight. That's the story of the martyrs. By worldly standards, today, and Jesus appeared to lose and lose badly, but it was precisely the way that he suffered and died that impacted those around him, and that's been sort of my motto. Even if we lose, we win. That's my cyanide white pill right there. All right, Thank you, Terry. We're out of time. Wolfpox.com, winterchristian.substack.com. Look forward to catching up with you next week. We didn't get to cover all the stuff we wanted to, but we'll do it again next week. Thanks.
Thank you very much.